Details have been revealed about the scope of a parliamentary inquiry into why IT software and hardware costs more in Australia than overseas. It'll compare the price differences for products including computer games, consoles, e-books, music and videos between Australia and markets in the US and the UK. The inquiry will try to establish why those differences exist and what can be done to reduce prices for Australian consumers. The inquiry will take public submissions until July the 6th. Well, Ed Husic is a federal Labor MP who's been campaigning for some time against IT giants like Apple and Microsoft about why they charge extra for Australians. He joins me now from Canberra. Ed Husic, how much more are Australians paying for things like music and game downloads, for example?
Well, in some cases it's up to 80% more for software that can simply be downloaded and there's no shipping or handling costs.
And what sort of explanation is given for those higher prices?
Oh, good question, because I've been raising this in Parliament for the last year and there's been very little engagement by IT firms to be able to give a picture as to the type of factors that they have to take into account in the way that they price, music, games, software, hardware. And that's part of the reason why we've got the inquiry right now.
Couldn't it be, for example, that they could argue that the Australian market is much smaller in size? We might have some different taxes, for example, that would help bump up the price?
Sure, and I guess the inquiry itself is designed to look at all the factors that need to be taken into account when it comes to prices, and it may be the case that some of these things will be able to explain it. But when I've got small businesses out of Melbourne, for example, contacting me and saying that they might have to pay $12,000 more for software, I don't think there are simple answers to that. Or I have in Western Sydney businesses or people trying to get software saying it would be more effective for them to get a flight to the US, buy the software and bring it back. But the only problem is the minute they go to upload that software onto their system, the IP address gives away that they're in Australia and they're unable to access or operate that software until they pay the difference. So it's these type of things that have driven consumers crazy, and we need to be able to find the answers as to why it's this way.
Do you think some of those big companies like Apple and Microsoft, for example, will actually front up and appear before this inquiry?
I think the inquiry gives a great opportunity for those big companies to be able to educate the public on some of the issues as to the factors they have to take into account when they set the prices that they do. Is it a case in terms of Australian music that we pay more because we support the local industry and give a potential leg up for local artists to come through? I've had other people say, well, how does that work when an Australian album by an Australian artist costs more on the iTunes store here in Australia than what it does in the States? People don't understand it.
You say it's a great opportunity for these companies to front up and educate the Australian public, but do you think they will front up?
Look, the ball's in their court. I can't talk for them. I think, frankly, it would be short-sighted of them not to take up the opportunity to appear before the committee, not to put in a submission and not to start the process of explaining why their prices are so different.
Is there any legal way to stop higher prices being charged in Australia?
Well, the terms of reference that we've released today cover a number of things, but one of them is to look at the measures that could be taken to address this situation. I've got to be honest, I am disappointed that the ACCC has not taken up this matter sooner. I think there are clear differences in some of the measures I mentioned earlier to you about using geographic bases to block people from being able to get better bargains should rate the attention of the ACCC. I have quizzed them about this through parliamentary committees in the last few months, and I hope that the inquiry will give an opportunity to potentially get the ACCC more engaged in this process.
But as far as you know, you're not aware of any sort of legal remedy in order to even out that pricing system?
Well, we're looking through the process of this inquiry at what remedies could be available now, what ones might need to be recommended. But I've got to say, my firm preference is that the IT vendors basically get a sense from consumers and from businesses that we shouldn't be shouldering these higher costs. From my point of view, people get the notion that if there's a shipping, handling, after-sales service impact, that they might pay more. And there's even R&D costs to recover. My concern is that businesses are potentially shouldering in Australia a higher level of cost than, say, their overseas counterparts. And the other thing is too, the Australian government spends about $2 billion on IT procurement, and we need to make sure that we're getting value for money.
Ed Husic, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Great to be here. Thanks for your time.